Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show. My name is Elle Russ, and I am a #1 best-selling author and master coach. My intention is to inspire, educate, and motivate you with weekly content featuring amazing guests and solo episodes. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about me, my courses, free masterclasses, partner discounts, and much more. Enjoy the show. Jeffrey Brownstein. Jeff, my incredible coach, welcome to my show. How are you?
Hey, Elle, how are you? My incredible client. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hey, I wanted to bring everyone, my coach on. When I was looking for a life coach back in like 2007, 2008, I did a little research on the internet, and there were some coaches that had some free consultations. And I spoke with 3 people, and the first 2 were women, and Jeff is the guy. And I actually was thinking probably maybe I was just trying to be like super open and being like, oh, let me throw a guy in there and see if he and wow, the difference in the consultations was night and day. Like, you solved an issue for me within a 20-minute consultation. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is a guy who knocks it out and gets it done like me. And I just, it's been a joy to be able to have you in my pocket whenever I've had something I can't coach myself out of, or a fellow friend coach, or you just need someone, even though you know me, unbiased. So I first want to just chat a little bit about, how did you get into this? You've been doing it for so long. You've been my coach for, since 2008. And I think you were doing it 3-4 years before that. What made you want to become a coach and help people?
I thought it was 2005. So you corrected me. So I've not known you as long. I was going to say that I've known you almost as long as I've known my wife, who I met in 2003. So it's a long relationship, Elle, which is beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to have any kind of relationship, but a coaching relationship for that long is pretty amazing.
It is. And to everyone listening, I have recommended Jeff to friends over the years, even to a couple of family members. Everybody is just kind of blown away after they speak with you and feel like, one session and you just really kind of change their perspective. And one of the reasons why I have suggested family members to see Jeff is because I've told them myself, look, you're talking to me as if I'm a coach, and I am, but I can't coach you. I'm too biased, man. I'm in this family. You're not even going to listen to me. Go call Jeff, get an unbiased opinion of someone, you're going to like take whatever he has to say legitimately versus coming out of my mouth.
I am going to answer your question, Elle. I promise I'll answer your question about how I got into it, but I do want to say something, because what you said, and you're a coach, so you know this, you've probably gotten feedback close to this, I'm guessing, but I've gotten this kind of feedback maybe 6 times. People will ask, what's the difference? You're not a therapist. Are you qualified? What's the difference? And, coaching starts with something's wrong. It goes to isolate the problem. They look back into your past. You can spend 2 years in therapy and talk about the same thing, which is okay. But, coaching starts from the present moment. It starts from where we are right now. And it works on the premise that nothing is wrong. We're going to deal with whatever issues going on today. We have all had stuff happen in our life, right? We've all had things happen. We know that. And nobody's got a life that has a blackboard that's clear. We've all had a lot of stuff that goes on, and we start from the present. And that's why I've gotten this comment maybe 6 times where people will say kind of what you alluded to. It's like, you solved my issue in one session that my therapist couldn't solve in 2 years. Oh. And isn't it a great thing when you hear something like that?
It's like the best compliment ever. Yes. And it speaks to cool. Also efficiency in being able to pan the camera out and then pinpoint the problem in a very quick, efficient way versus other people who are just maybe take years to get there.
Yeah. And maybe, right, Elle, and maybe not. And digging for stuff, I dig too. Believe me, we all dig as coaches, but maybe not digging for the stuff that doesn't really matter. Because some of the stuff, you got to dig for past stuff. And a lot of stuff is deep, right? It cuts, you got to go maybe back dozens of years. But once you find the thing, you don't have to spend like 8 months talking about the thing anymore. Okay, that's the thing. And let's go. Let's move forward. The rest is a story. We can deal with what happened. And then there's a whole story people create around what happened. So I try to keep the story and the drama to a minimum. I think that's the key to my coaching, is that there's whatever happened. Like, I had a bad relationship with my mother. That's what happened. Now I create this whole story about what it did to me, how my mother's not a great person, how I became a victim. I can make a whole story up, and it's not really important to solving where I want to go at that point. So anyway, how I got into it is what you asked me. I'm happy to answer that if you'd like me to.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, at the end of that, talk a little bit about how you also are an amazing couples coach and focus on couples too, not just individuals. So tell us how you got into it. And it's been a long time now.
It's an easy one, and I appreciate the question. I've been doing personal growth. I'm in my upper 50s. I'm going to be 58 this year in September, but I've been doing this, I'd say, over 40 years, which is accurate. I was in high school reading, I was the guy in Barnes and Noble that would go to the self-help section, and there wasn't a title that I didn't know. At least the book I'd seen it. If I hadn't read it, I had seen it or browsed some pages of it, and that's true right to this day. It's like there's very few books or stuff out there in the personal growth and self-transformation field that someone can tell me about that I haven't at least heard of. There's probably something someone could trick me on, but so I was just something innate, right? It was just in me to just, I wanted to be a better person. Maybe with me, and I use that example about having a bad relationship with my mother. I did. I had my parents got divorced. I had a tumultuous teenage childhood with my mother, and I kind of look back and I'm grateful because that may have helped me get into this whole coaching thing, because I was just about, how do I become better? How do I make my life better? How do I get out of this trauma, this nonsense that's happening? And so I really got into personal growth. I was very into metaphysics stuff and psychic and life after death. It was all really fascinating to me. And finally, around 2005, I came on professional coaching. I said, let me go and get certified professionally. And it was like taking a master's program in coaching. And I did it through a company called IPEC, IPEC. Mm-hmm. One of the coaching outlets that are recognized through the ICF, the International Coaching Federation. And I got certified, and that's how it started. And then it's in line with who I am. So it rolled from there.
Yeah. And in fact, for so many years, you didn't even have a website because you have so many referrals and people who just send people to you. But we'll put everything in the show notes. But I want to mention right now, tell everyone where your website is so that if they want to go on there, and of course, we'll mention it at the end as well.
I appreciate that. Hopefully me or you will say something smart in between so they'll want to come, right? But it's just cool. The website is BigLife, just like it sounds, BigLifeCourse.com. My email is coach@BigLifeCourse.com. And you can reach me by phone at 619-75-COACH, which is 752-6224.
I love it. I want you to expand on something I wrote about in one of my books about coaching with you, something that you really helped me with that changed my life. And it was actually a very direct comment. I think people listening right now are like, okay, this guy's very direct. So what happened is, by the way, can you hear that noise in the background, Jeff? I'll have the editor edit this out.
It sounds perfect to me here. It's very quiet.
Good. Sorry, there's like a lawnmower in the back. Sorry, I'll have him edit that out. Sorry, hold on. Let me take a sip. Excuse me.
It's all good. I could have lawnmowers going on here in a second. You never know, right?
Yeah, here we go. All right. So I want to share with the audience a really major life-changing moment that I had with Jeff as my coach. I talk about it in one of my books. I've mentioned I wrote a whole chapter in Confident as Fuck about the shame I had around my disability, my hand issue. For years, I hid it from people. I wouldn't tell people I was dating. I was too embarrassed about being rejected, feeling less than. I had so many issues with vulnerability as a result of this shame. And so I talk about it in my book where I had this breakup 10 years ago. I was miserable. I didn't want the breakup. I was, crying to Jeff about it. I called him, and the thing that I was sort of complaining about was I was like, oh, everything about this guy is so great. I did all this work. I brought this person in. They were perfect, except for they have one big deal breaker. And that is they're an emotional robot and they can't express themselves and blah, blah, blah. And I said, it feels like a cruel joke. And you said something to me I'll never forget. And it seemingly it's very direct. And this is why you get shit done in a short amount of time. You said, what, Elle, the universe doesn't play cruel jokes on people. I think that you might need to look at yourself being the emotional robot. Did you tell him about your disability? Did you open up about yourself? Did you express love? I was sitting there waiting for someone to say they love me because I was hoping, all this fucking bullshit. And you just cut it. And I bawled my eyes out because harsh moment and a harsh day. I remember it very well. And
My wife still tells me, all right, Allison will tell me, she says, you always say the right thing. Your presentation sometimes sucks, but hopefully it didn't suck too bad. Hopefully it didn't suck too bad when I told you that,
No, because you know what? It needed to hit. And in that moment, I'm like, well, what do I do, Jeff? What do I do? And you said, you're going to have to learn to be more vulnerable. And I was like, no, I said, how? And that started me finally realizing I was the common denominator in a pattern of attracting unavailable, emotionally unavailable or unavailable in some way people. And it wasn't until I got flat with my shame, and it doesn't mean that you need to write a chapter about it in a book or do a Facebook Live, but I got flat with it. I worked with Jeff. I worked with, myself. And honestly, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And had I not had you there to give me that moment, I'm not sure I would have gotten it, and I might still be struggling with it. So I love you for that. Thank you. And also, this is why you have coaches like Jeff who you can in these moments. So I'd love to talk about vulnerability and that thing. I mean, not necessarily mine specifically, although you're more than welcome to touch on anything you feel, but let's talk about that, because that is an issue with people in relationships, and it was mine.
Well, there's one thing you and I talked at the beginning when we were starting this call. We said, well, what do you want to talk about? What area do we this is a great area, because you hit on something that's one of the hugest things. If people get anything out of our call today, right? Listening, Elle, this is a great thing to get, is that we're all looking, right? What we tend to do as people is we tend to try and change other people. It's like they're the problem, if that person would just be more emotional, my life would be good. Or if that person would just stop yelling at me, my life would be good. Or if they would just do this and stop acting this way, my life would be just great. And what is the real common denominator? It's not about anything on the outside. It's all about us. And the only thing we have the power to do in the present moment, right? The present moment is where we have all our power. We can only change ourselves. We can't change another person. So that's what you just hit on. It's one of the biggest things in life, that if people could just get that, stop trying to change other people, work on changing ourselves. And that's really hard for some people, because people love to be victims. They love to put it out in the world, like, oh, the world's screwing me. The world's doing this to me. The world's not doing anything to us. It's us. We can only change us. And I think that's huge that you just hit on that.
Yeah. And on the heels of that, I'd love you to touch on maybe some stories of some people you've coached who, aside from me, either had issues with vulnerability or somewhere where we can explore this in sort of a relationship context with couples coaching or something, where you saw a 180. I mean, I think I'm a 180 based as your client, but I'd love to hear a few stories or things that, remind you of this.
I've got a lot of 180s. I would almost say all my clients, not they don't all do a 180, but I've coached. Look, I coached a woman. I don't know if I even you may not know this, but I do. I live with Allison. I live in a 55 plus community, and in our community, I run a weekly coaches corner, is what I call it. And every week there's about 30 people from the community that get together, and we pick a topic every week. And a lot of times it does come back to vulnerability and couples. And so there's one woman that I coach in particular that same thing. She couldn't figure out why the guy she's dating, her husband passed away and she's dating a new guy, couldn't figure out why he's like shut down and why he's not opening up and why. And then same thing as you, Elle, she finally I'm like, well, how open are you? And she realized that, well, I'm the one that needs to open up. And when she made those changes, like you said, when she started to take on, she's one of my clients that is really just, I mean, she's almost gone 360. She's gone so 180. So she's really been great. But she started, she started to make changes for herself and realized that, wow, when I make changes, the other person changes. That's the beauty of it. When we make a change, when we open up, when we become the thing we want to see in the other person, that's the key, I think. It's if we want vulnerability in someone else, be vulnerable. You will get vulnerability in the other person, maybe not to the extent that that you think you should get it, or, that's another topic, right? What should happen. But if we're the thing we want to see in our life, if we become that thing, it's going to appear, you and I do a lot of law of attraction stuff. If we be the thing we want, it's just going to show up in our lives more.
Yeah, I mean, that's initially how I found you because at the time I had gotten into law of attraction back in 2007, 2008, and I was looking up law of attraction coaches. And actually, that is how I initially found you. And I know it's still a part of Jeff's work, although sometimes it never comes up in a conversation. Um, what do you think?
It is. Talking about that too, Elle, with law of attraction, it's a great, we could talk about this on a whole nother topic, but even back then, even when I did law of attraction, and I never really asked how you feel about it, but I always felt like still there was something missing from law of attraction. It was like everybody was trying to attract stuff. It's like, I want a new car. I want more money. I want this. I want a boy in my life. I want a girlfriend. I want this and that. And it's really about what I learned moving onward. And this is the key again, it could be the key to something bigger. It's not so much law of attraction, and I knew this, I just couldn't voice it at the time, and now I can. It's not so much about the things we want, it's what we want to feel. Mm-hmm. So if we want a husband or we want a boyfriend, how will that person make us feel? That's the question I always ask people. How will it make you feel? Well, it'll make me feel secure. It'll make me feel wanted. It'll make me feel happy. Whatever the digging deep of what you would feel, that's what we want. And we could be that right now. We could be that in any moment. And then let the universe take over. And that's the real law of attraction. When we don't have this plan, sometimes we want to have this plan. And law of attraction always said, be specific, put together this exact plan. Tell the universe exactly what time you want it to happen. Stuff didn't happen, Elle. I don't know about for you, but for me, it didn't happen when I said it was going to happen. It would always happen later, or it would happen a little differently because I would get in the way of it with specifics. And I'm learning to be less specific now rather than more specific.
Although I do remember years and years ago, it was a horrible housing market and you were trying to sell your house. And you even told me on the phone, you go, you know what? I'm giving it a date by October, whatever. I'm going to sell this house. Yeah. And then you forgot about it because then you told me you sold your house. And I go, Jeff, today is the day that you said you would. Like, it came up without you even knowing because you weren't resistant.
But it was a month later. And you even remember the month, Elle, because it was like September. I was going to sell it September 4th. That was the day. And it sold on October 4th. We had a conversation, and that's what got me thinking. I'm like, it did happen the way I put it out there, but it was delayed because I was getting, and again, I had to look back. I couldn't blame the universe. The universe is doing its job. It was me getting in the way of myself, trying to force stuff to happen. When we force, when we don't allow, when we start to control every little piece of the puzzle, that's when I think we get in trouble with law of attraction. That's you gotta allow. That's the biggest piece. You gotta put out there what you want, but then you have to be able to step back and have trust. And that's the part. I don't know about you, but I struggle with the trust part.
I remember also a really interesting sort of thought experiment you had during that time, because at the time I had a couple of family members trying to sell their places with no luck, but they had horrible attitudes about it. It was like, oh, these people are terrible that are coming to look, and everything was bad. Everything was bad.
They were planting statues. I remember people would plant statues in the soil. They would do whatever. They do all this stuff to try and sell. Oh, somebody in the Mayan time said to do this, and it's, they were doing everything.
Right. What I love, though, and I did this with a relationship thing too, I love that you changed your perspective. You told me at the time, you said, you know what, instead of thinking about selling my house or getting into the new house, what I'm doing is I'm envisioning the people that are going to buy this and how happy. Maybe it'll be someone's first house. Maybe they're going to have a baby. I'm looking out the window and I'm imagining them seeing this view for the first time. I liked how you shifted it to the other perspective. And I think in manifesting a relationship, that's a good thing too. And thinking not just about the qualities of things you want, but being already happy for the person out there that would be so stoked to find you, kind of flipping
that's beautiful.
I love that. I love that you did that. And I just wanted to share that with everyone because you might have a perspective now on something you want. You might want to flip it a little bit.
I love that, Ellen. And it is true. It's like, that's the law of attraction, right? In a nutshell, is that whatever we're vibrating, whatever our energy is, there's something in the universe that's vibrating that same energy back to us. That's going to get, you said it perfectly, that's going to get the same thing from us that we want from them. And if we could focus on that, I think what it does too, by focusing on the other thing, the other person, the other, if it's a couple, let's say you're focusing on a person, if you're focusing on what they would get out of it, the beauty of that is it takes you out of your own head, which is another topic. Oh my God, Elle, huge topic in my coaching right now is getting out of our mind, Going out of our minds, go from mind. There's a phrase, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but the longest journey we'll ever make is the 18 inches from our head to our heart. Have you heard that or no?
No, I haven't. It's a good one.
It's a good one because our mind it makes us nuts. I mean, we all, every one of us, right? Our consciousness, probably for most of our lives, we think of it as our brain and our mind, and it churns and churns and churns. And the mind is always telling us what we should want, what we should do. We should do this now. We should get that. We should have a bigger house. I should have a prettier girlfriend. I should have this. I should have that. And it's the mind going nuts. And if we could get out of the mind and be in the present moment and start to live from the body and the heart and inspiration instead of shoulds and what I think I should have or what my neighbor tells me I should have or what my neighbor has that I want that I don't have, you know, if we get into our heart and literally center ourselves and say, what do I truly want? We start to process things from a feeling perspective instead of more from a material, like even people, right? A spouse can be a thing. I want a spouse. I don't care who it is, as long as it's pretty and it makes me happy. Just bring it to me. Get into the feeling of what we want, and then allow the universe to deliver whatever's meant for us, whatever the universe is going to deliver. And sometimes, as you know, because we've talked about this, sometimes it's way better than our tiny little minds can even picture. It comes back so much bigger and better because we couldn't have even imagined it if we tried to do it ourselves, you know?
That's right. And I think it was Mike Dooley who expressed it that, you know, you are, when you try to plan or you're worrying about the hows and all of this stuff with law of attraction, you are limiting an otherwise unlimited universe. And often it does happen in a way you could never have predicted, in a way that was better than you could have even mapped out yourself had you specifically chosen it. That's why I have learned to sort of let go and realize like this or something better, because I know sometimes it gets delivered in a way that's way better than I could have ever put out there.
Yeah. And I know, you know, a little bit about my wife, Allison. She studies a modality called human design. And she always talks about a word that I hate, that I've come to embrace. She talks about waiting all the time. It's a big thing in her modality. It's waiting. It's like not, I want what I want and I want it like in 5 minutes, because that's our society, right? That's what the world is. I want what I want and I got to have it in the next 10 minutes. I'm going to get it. And her thing is wait, just wait. And it's hard for people to actually sit back and wait a little bit, but it's the key to getting what we want, because it gets us out of our minds. When we wait, the mind's not, we can't churn and churn and churn. We actually have to step back, wait a little bit, and then with an inspired action rather than a crazy mental action, when we feel something, when we feel inspired to move forward, that's the time to move forward, not when the crazy mind goes, I got to get that now. Go to the car dealership. Let's go to the Mercedes dealership. Get a Mercedes, you know?
Hey,
do you really want a Mercedes? Maybe not. Maybe it's, what is the Mercedes going to do for me, or what is the person going to do for me? And step back and wait a little bit. It's not waiting. It's not meaning wait and don't do anything. That's not what I'm saying. It's waiting to feel inspired rather than acting on every little impulse we have, which is what a lot of people, their minds run their life, Al. You know, a lot of people, I've found that their minds are just running. They're not running themselves. Their minds are running the show.
Yeah, because they're not taking the time to examine the thoughts. And I want to touch on, you know, you mentioned earlier, like, you know, victim mentality. You know, one of the things I love about looking at an ancestral perspective is, you know, a victim mentality is like a modern problem. It's something our hunter-gatherer ancestors did not have. They didn't, if they didn't catch the beast that night, they weren't sitting around going, Doug, I don't know if I should be a hunter. Do you think I should be a hunter anymore? I don't know. They forged ahead. They devised a new plan. It was onward and upward, and failure was feedback. So wallowing in self-pity and despair is a modern luxury, because back then that would have been a recipe for death. So I wanted you to touch on a little bit on this notion, just victim mentality, how it can come up and how to combat it.
Yeah, we actually, it's great you brought this up. We talked about this in a session of my Coach's Corner about a week ago. One of my participants brought up, and it's kind of what you're saying. It's like, her question was, why aren't we all leading an extraordinary life? Because I always talk about living extraordinary, creating an extraordinary life. And she said, I always ask myself that. Why are we all not living an extraordinary life? And a big factor in what we started talking about and what I brought up was this victim mentality. It's like, I'm not, you know, whatever it is, I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. Other people have something I don't have. And you start to get into this mentality that
my parents made me this way. That kind of thing happens a lot. I'm this way because of my parents.
So it is. So that's the thing. So we don't lead extraordinary lives because we get into a victim mentality and we allow the outside forces, or we think we do. We credit's the opposite word, but we blame, that's the word. We blame the outside forces for everything we don't have. And it's all about, again, it's about putting the focus somewhere else. The victim mentality comes because it's easier. If we put the blame out there, right, Elle? If we put it out there like somebody else did it to me, it's somebody else's fault, it's something I don't have that I'm not capable of having, I don't have it within me. If we put it out there, we can stay in our little area of comfort. We don't have to do much about it, and we can just blame people, and that's easier. And for most people, they live a lot of their lives like that, and it is one of, when you think about it, one of the saddest things, because that's a low vibration. That's, again, another topic, energy and vibration, but it's living in a low vibration. It's living in a space of, I'm not going to have what I want because of A, B, and C on the outside, rather than what can I do on the inside to get out of a victim mode. And there's a lot, obviously, there's a lot people can do. It's taking responsibility. It's taken 100% responsibility for everything that happened in their life, pretty much. And who wants to do that? That's scary.
Yeah. And it's tough because a lot of things don't feel like they are your responsibility and could feel like victim shaming, I guess. So can you touch on that a little bit? Like, how do we take 100% responsibility without blaming oneself? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's never anything. I start it's funny. I say this in every one of my sessions that's a group session, and I try and say it in individual sessions. There's nothing wrong. And we talked about that with therapy versus coaching. And it's what you're saying. Start with the premise of there's nothing wrong. And then you can't blame yourself, because if you say, well, I talk too much, or I'm this, or I'm that. No, there's nothing wrong. Just let's go from today. We are who we are. We're all different people. We all have our Achilles heels. We've got our things we deal with. I deal with, I've told you 100 times probably, I deal with OCD. It's one of my, I can't blame anybody for that. Oh, it's the world. I have all this obsessive compulsive. Oh, it's the world did it to me. I'm like, no, it's my thoughts that are racing. Yeah, it feels like it's outside. Sometimes it feels like it's out of my control. But when I feel like that, I always tell myself there's nothing wrong. Just remind myself that there is something. I may not be able to fix the whole problem in 2 seconds, but there's something I can do to help myself, rather than, oh, I'm blaming this, and I sit there in the same place that I've been in and I don't move. So by helping ourselves, at least we get to move a little too, and we get to get out of the space that we're in. So that's the key to getting out of victim mentality. Take responsibility. Don't, like you said, don't blame yourself. Nothing's wrong, but just go from the place of what is. It is what it is, and I want to move forward, and I'm going to take a step or two, and here's what I'm going to do. Not blaming anyone else. Just take the steps.
Let's talk about something you're really good at helping people with is sort of, and maybe this is the wrong phrasing, I'm not sure, but like finding your purpose, finding meaning in life, right? You know, people are lost. And I now know too, especially if you've been like on the train, you've been in the corporate world, you had the kids, the job, and then you get to a point midlife and you're like, wait, hold on. Now everything's sort of chill. The kids are in college. You're like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I think there's a lot of that. I see a lot of that with my age group. Yeah. But in general, yeah, touch on these type of things in terms of people out there and they're struggling with like, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not fulfilled. You know, I want a different life, career, or whatever.
It's my favorite area to coach. You probably know that. So it's the area I'm most passionate. I've had a lot of different projects around life purpose. So I love coaching around it. It's my go-to area. And yeah, so people that are confused, or they're I've been in this job for 40 years and it's not what I wanted to do. It goes back to starting with the same thing. Sometimes it's just literally stepping back, getting off the hamster wheel, because most people right today, everything's moving faster. The world is accelerating. Things are moving quicker. And that hamster wheel, if we're on it, is spinning faster and faster and faster. So what's the first thing to do? Step off the hamster wheel. How do you do that? You step off the hamster wheel. You just take a little bit of time, whether it's 15 minutes, an hour. Go to a Barnes and Noble, go out into nature, go to somewhere that's sacred to you. Bring a pen and a paper, bring your phone that you can record your voice on, and start to ask yourselves the questions of, what do I want? What is it? If I could be in anything, if I could have anything, if I could do anything, what would those things be? And take the time to get quiet with ourselves. Take the time to to stop the wheels upstairs in our mind from spinning, to actually get back to our heart and say, what is it that I would do? And then do one thing or a couple things to do it, you know?
So simple, but it is so simple.
It is, well, and then you're still going to get a lot of times, and people are going to feel like this. Some people are going to sit with the pen and paper and sit there for an hour and go, I can't come up with anything. I don't even know what I want. That's a big thing I get asked. Well, that's great. If I knew what I want, I would do it, but I don't even know what I want. And I know a lot of people feel like that because I have clients every day that feel like that. You could tell me, pick what I want. I don't even know what I want. How do I figure out what I want? And I go back again to, there's been so much, they're so far removed from what their gut and their heart wants. Mm-hmm. They just have to go back a little further. It's like coming back to the point A on the path. They've just veered off the path even further. When you can't figure out what you want, you've really veered off the path. You got to come back home. And all that means is coming back to ourselves. When we say coming back home, come back to yourself. Get centered. Ask yourself, what brings me joy? What brings me pleasure? It doesn't have to be a major career. It doesn't have to be, sometimes people think like, I used to think that I have to get exactly what I want to do in my career. No, it could just be like, I like to be out in nature more. Then go out in nature. All of a sudden, it'll start a ball rolling. The universe will start to feel like this person's doing what they want to do. I'm going to give them more of what they want to do. So it starts small. It could be something really small that you enjoy, and just take a half a day and go out and do it. Stop putting it off, you know?
I love that. And I always say in my second book, it's like when you do a pro-you move, you get rewarded. Yep. There's a prize that comes. The universe will kind of give a sign and signal that you're in the right direction. And the other thing too is the people that are confused, like, I don't even know what I want. A lot of those people, as I'm sure you've heard, are still looking at, what thing could I do that I think I could make money at, or I think is possible? They don't think about what they want. They're still thinking in the practical, like real life terms of it. And that's kind of the wrong way to go, because that'll stop you before you get there. Right. You know what I mean?
Can you see my hand up now? I'm as guilty as anybody with that. I've got a spouse coaches. My spouse coaches me on that. She's like, stop thinking about how you can make money. Just go do what you want to. It's so huge, because we all think like that. It's like, I got to make a living. How do I? No, what you said, do the thing you love. And then, like you said, the universe will open things up for you. Someone will call you. Someone will give you an idea. Someone will come up with an idea for you of how to make money with, you know? And you just kind of being in the flow, I think, is what you're alluding to. Instead of forcing it, like, I got to do this, I got to control everything. Sit back, do some things you love, and then be open to being in the flow and go down the river. Just let the river take you a little and see where it goes. That's hard for people. Again, why? Everybody loves to be in control. We don't like to give up control, but sometimes giving up the control is the key to happiness and the key to getting what we want. That's allowing in law of attraction. That's the allowing piece. Give it up. Give up the control.
Yeah. And on a personal note, as you know, years and years ago, I did things I loved, that is technically a profession, writing, without getting paid for it, without anyone, right? And now oftentimes, especially in Hollywood and other creative areas, you got to sing for free at the local farmer's market until, right, et cetera. But because those people are doing what they love, and I did that, I just did what I loved. I sat down with a writing partner. We wrote sitcoms. We didn't have an agent or anyone asking to pay us for this. We did it because we loved it. And it eventually led to making money at that thing. But I just did it because we loved it. Now, we had the intention, like, it'd be great if we wrote a sitcom and we sold it, but we didn't have any incentive other than the love for it. And then it led to being paid for it ultimately.
It's so true. And I've done a ton of individual coaching, and I wanted to get into more group coaching. So I started this group about a year ago. And again, no agenda. I just wanted to do it. I love coaching. I love coaching groups. So I got this group, and people showed up. I was wondering, people in this community were going, oh, that's coaching? I don't know. These are older people. They're in their 50s and 60s and 70s and some 80s, and some 90s. Are they going to come to this thing? And I said, I don't know. And I thought maybe 2 people would show up for my free, like you said, free event. I'm going to do this weekly, do a free event. I have 30 people that show up. Every week there's 20 to 30 people that show up, and it's led by me making a choice to actually just do something, put it out there. It's led to a lot of lucrative things, group events that I've done for pay, individual coaching, couples coaching. It's an amazing example. Just put something out there, and the universe just went, wow, you just did what you want to do. And all these things that I wanted to do just kept coming back to me more and more. It's been amazing. And I'm 20 years into my coaching career, and it's still happening,
Yeah, it is amazing. Okay, so in the last few minutes here, or 10 minutes here, I want to talk a little bit about what you offer, because you offer one-on-one private coaching, which is amazing. I obviously highly recommend it for everybody. And also too, you know what? There's a lot of guys out there, and I know there's a lot of female coaches. I also wanted to introduce a guy for you guys if you felt more comfortable with a dude. And you know what? Here's your guy. But tell us
sometimes men do, believe it or not, sometimes men who need coaching, I've coached a lot of men that you'd figure, well, I don't know what you'd figure, that there's no figuring, but man to man coaching can be good because they have somebody who's been where they are and who understands it. So that can be a good thing too, for a guy to find a guy coach sometimes can be big,
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your website, what you offer in terms of helping people, how people can get more from your coaching.
So I do one-on-one coaching. I've been saying I'm going to do an online course for years now. It hasn't happened, but that's okay. That's one of those things where that's a great example of I should do an online course because everyone's doing online courses. They're so lucrative. They're passive income. And remember, we were just talking about this. I should do it. I've resisted doing it because it's not something I really enjoy. So it's still sitting there, and that's okay. But for now, I do one-on-one coaching. I do couples coaching. I do life purpose. I do career coaching. I do spirituality coaching. If you want to become more in touch with your spiritual self, I do that kind of coaching. I'm a certified pranic energy healer. I believe I'm very adept at the energetic world and people that want to heal themselves and get in touch with healing and health and well-being. I coach around that. We can all do that in one-on-one sessions. I also do group sessions, and if you just check on the website, my wife and I are relocating to Denver, Colorado. So the next group event will be in Denver, somewhere in that area. We just finished one in Greenville back in June. And I plan to do them every few months. They usually come up. So once we get settled in, group event, you can fly in. It's a weekend event, and it's intense. And if I'm sure people have probably been to something similar, but if you've never been to a full weekend or a 3-day event that's intensive, they're life-changing, and they can really just do something you never forget in your life, and I've been to many of them, and I remember all of them. So one-on-one coaching and the live group coaching is what I do now mostly. So
I love it. And again, everyone can go to BigLifeCourse.com to learn more about Jeff. Jeff, leave us with some coaching, like not testimonials, but like some little success stories, things that stand out to you. 20 years of coaching. What's hit you the hardest in terms of clients? I mean, in a good way, in terms of self-growth or any of these topics we've been talking about.
I'm going to share because I just shared it about, there's a guy I coach pretty recently. He put a testimonial on my website, which you can read. And he literally tells me, it's a guy I met here where I live. And he literally in his testimonial said, "I love you, brother." Because he talked about how I was able to help him get feelings out as a guy to a guy, like I talked about, to help him get feelings out that he knew were there that he couldn't get out. That's so rewarding when I can help a human being get in touch with their soul, when they can get in touch with who they truly are. It's incredible. I've had women in my groups and in individual coaching say that they've found happiness from coaching. They've never been happy until they started coaching with me. And they said they found tools, and they have a toolkit now that they can go back to actually create their own happiness and not rely on it from an outside source. There are literally tools, Elle, right? We know that you can use to do this. That's what we try and teach. Whatever the coaching is around, these things are going to come up. You're going to get a toolkit of what to do. There are just so many people, Elle, that they can read it. There's a testimonial page, and I have 7 or 8 of them on there. There's just about people whose lives have changed from coaching, and it's
I don't know why I should write. Why am I not writing one? I should write one and send it to you. I'm like your biggest testimonial.
You were up there. I've changed my website so many times, and it's fluid. It's like I get more recent stuff, and it's just fluid stuff. But I'm gonna look for a new one from you. That's a good idea. I like that, actually.
Send you one because I'm like your biggest fan. And again, it's so nice to.
And what? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned something at the beginning, which is really apropos. Elle said at the beginning, like, there were times I didn't have a website. There are still times. I'm 20 years into my business. I could care less what Elle knows. She's like, send me a headshot. I'm like, a headshot. I'll send you a selfie of my side. It's great. It's great to be focused on being polished. I get it, right? I've never been focused on the polished stuff because there's all this stuff about what you should do and you should put this up and you should do that. My website, it looks pretty good, but it's bare bones. It's like, it's got the information on there. It's got what you need to know. And that's what I would encourage people to do. It's not always do everything you have to do or you think you should do, because I've made a career of this with not doing what everybody thinks I should do. I just do what I do. Yeah.
You've been an extremely successful coach without the classic things people tell you to do to be a successful coach. So you are a great example of.
I've had pretty websites, Elle, right? I've had pretty websites and they've done nothing. So it's like, I've done that where I've made a pretty website. It looks perfect. And then I'm like, all right, what do I do now? And I did all the prep work, but it's doing the real work. That's what I always encourage. Whatever we're coaching, whether it's relationships or career, do the real work. And the real work is about what we were talking about this whole call. It's coming back to yourself and doing the work to be authentically who we are. That's the real work. Come back home, be our authentic selves. Stop listening to people about what everyone should do. Or that's the biggest key in any part of coaching. Be authentic. Be really who you truly are. And that's what my whole coaching backbone is. That's what anything we coach around, that's going to be the backbone.
I love it. And I guess my last question would be, in all of these years of coaching, I mean, obviously profound effects on your personal life, your own personal spiritual growth. Can you give us a little synopsis about who you thought the kind of person you were before you went on this journey and the changes, some of the changes in who you are now? Give us a little contrast.
Yeah. Oh my God. It all revolves around authenticity. I'm a big image guy. You may not know this about me, right? We've known each other a long time. Elle and I have never met in person. Still, after this long, we keep saying one day we're going to.
Hilarious.
It is hilarious. There was one time we almost did it in California, but I think I had something come up. But yeah, it's all around authenticity. It's all around. I'm a big image guy. It's Allison, my wife, does these charts on human design, and she tells me, you're an image person. My image is important to me. So it's amazing. I don't have a pretty website because it's all important to me. That's my growth, though. It's going from a person who would try and put out to the world what I wanted them to see about me. I wanted them to see someone successful, see someone who's warm and fuzzy, see someone who's happy, see someone who's this. And instead of putting out an image, what I realized was I stepped back and said, I don't know if I feel as good as my image, is what I'm projecting out there. So I really did the work. I dug deep and I said, who's the authentic Jeff? And now I'm more vulnerable. I actually share things that I would have never shared with it. Like even mentioning to you on this call, Elle, that I deal with OCD. I wouldn't have told someone that in the past. I would have hid it, Sure. I would have been in hiding with stuff that's going on. I put out there everything about me now. If there's anything about me, I'll tell someone about it. There's nothing to hide anymore. So I've truly become my most authentic self. And that's what I'm so excited when I coach anybody on, no matter what the area. Be authentically who we are, because I've been there. I've been inauthentic. And now I'm more authentic. I'm not perfect. There's a lot of things I could grow, still do to grow authentically. But I've been there and I've grown to be more authentic. And that's I can't say, enough times how that's the key to everything. Figure out ourselves, find our true compass, our true north, or, I don't know who that author was, but that just came to my mind. So,
yeah, it's so, and I always talk about, like, with confidence, authenticity reigns supreme for a reason. Truly confident people are authentic. We look up to them. Why? Because of the authenticity. And then it was interesting. I recently interviewed a guy, and you guys listening can go check it out. Vincent Todd Tolman. He is a famous near-death experience where he died. He was dead for 30 minutes. They pronounced him dead, put him in a body bag, and in the ambulance, some rookie EMT just had this gut instinct like this, I don't think he's dead, opened the body bag and got him back to life. The guy was in a coma for 3 days, but he had this experience of how he talks about what he feels like is heaven, but like non-denominational. But the interesting thing is he came back with like, hey, these are the 10 principles I've learned. And the one thing that he said he was personally surprised about is he thought, you think love's the thing. He goes, actually, in my experience there, authenticity is the most important thing, even above love, because you can't receive or give love if you're not authentic. And I thought that was very interesting, and it is a testament to sort of what you're talking about.
I think what you said is spot on, Elle. I think it is. It's the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing we can strive for. I recently did the same thing. It was like I came across this quote and it just hit me. It was like the biggest goal we can undertake. Like everyone undertakes these goals. Or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this in my career, or this with my health. I want to get thinner, or I want to get the perfect soulmate. We can take on all these goals. The biggest goal in our life is to come back home to ourselves. And that is being authentic. It's figuring out who we truly are, showing it to the world, not being afraid of anything, being uniquely ourselves with our foibles, with our skills, with our talents. Shine the whole light. Even the stuff that we think is not shineable is shineable because it'll help somebody. If someone else sees that we're going through something, it's going to help someone else. So even the thing we think of as our weaknesses, that can be a shine in the flashlight that we're shining out to the world because it's going to help someone else.
Which is absolutely true for me in every way. I thank you so much. First of all, I mean, I love you as a person, as my coach.
I love you too.
And everyone, listen, Jeff is available. He's amazing. Obviously, I can attest to that. I'm going to go write a testimonial after we get off this call, but BigLifeCourse.com, and go ahead and contact Jeff and see what he's got available. And wow, I mean, how many years now? Probably like 30, 40 years almost, really.
No,
Technically
coaching,
20
yeah.
years.
And knowing you for almost 20, and I want to tell you this because I know I'm your guest, but you're doing an amazing, amazing job for people. I see how much you do. I saw you back in 2007, right? You were still doing great things, but where you've come from, oh my God, you're a testament to coaching because you are doing so many amazing things for so many people. You're a living example of what what it means to grow,
Thank you. And honestly, I don't know that I could have done it without the help of having you there for me through moments that, only a coach.
I got my little two fingers together going, maybe a little tiny little part, but you did most. Yeah, I get it. But I don't like to take a lot of the credit. You still did the work. And that's what everybody listening, you all got to do your own work. We can ask as coaches, we can ask the right questions, but you're an amazing testament. You've done the work.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey Brownstein, for joining us, everyone. BigLifeCourse.com. And hopefully we'll have you back on. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Elle. I love you again, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye. Hey, listeners. Over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture. And it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products. And I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.